Hey everybody, it's your boy John back with another review. This time, I'm sure you didn't see this one coming, but it's Fantastic Four, the Complete Collection, Volume 1, by Jonathan Hickman. Now, I've been hearing about Hickman, how great his Fantastic Four is for a long time, and everybody's been hyping this so much. I wanted to see what it was about. I don't read very many modern comics. I guess this isn't that modern at this point. When did this come out? I feel like a boomer saying that stuff is modern when it doesn't say when it came out. This was published in 2018. I don't know when these issues actually came out. If anybody knows, leave it in the comments because that's pretty interesting. But I think it came out like 5 or 6 years ago or something like that. So that's not that modern. But it was kind of in this era where I'm not really reading a lot of comics. So Hickman was writing Fantastic Four and Avengers. His stuff's hailed by a lot of people. In the comic forums I'm in, everybody just goes ape. Should I swear? Goes ape over this. And so that is the Fantastic Four by Hickman. Now, if you are aware of my collecting habits, I generally collect the Epic collections, which you've seen me review a few of in the past. And I also collect omnibuses, like these giant Marvel omnibuses. Which I don't have one handy to grab right now. But so I was looking for the Fantastic Four by Hickman Omnibus because I've got a nice run of omnibuses for Fantastic Four, which are the original Stan Lee era up through Volume 3, the John Byrne era, Volumes 1 and 2. So I figured, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and collect all the Fantastic Four omnibuses like I am doing the Spider-Man omnibuses. However, the Fantastic Four omnibus is sold out, and it goes for like $200, $300, $400. It's really hard to find, and I don't want to pay that much for some modern comic I've never read before. So I wanted to see how good it was, at the very least, before diving into it. And I probably will hold off until they do a reprint or something like that, because it's just too pricey. It doesn't make sense. Unless one of you guys got one and you want to send it my way, please definitely contact me. If so, you'll be my best friend. That's all. All right. So this is it, the complete collection. It covers the issues. Covers Dark Reign Fantastic Four 1 through 5, Fantastic Four 570 through 578, the Cabal one shot. And that's it. So, there was this Dark Reign event where this spun out of. I don't know what happened in Dark Reign. I didn't actually read Dark Reign. But this actually holds up pretty well by itself. I think this one-shot, or this, it's not really a one-shot, it's a miniseries that leads into a one-shot, is pretty interesting. The art is this, modern, overly detailed style, which is all right. But it ends up a lot of... I'd say it's a lot less dynamic than the normal House Marvel style, even though it's, it looks snazzy from the detail perspective. You don't get quite as much fun from just the art perspective as you would from a general comic, in my opinion. So we read this. Mr. Fantastic is going through this time machine thing, or I guess different dimensional machine thing with the Fantastic Four, and some cool stuff. I really like the kid aspects, actually. So they're going through this dimensional machine to try to find different dimensions, because Mr. Fantastic is sure there's this cataclysm about to happen and destroy everything. It's going to be a big problem. Derp. He's got to save the world, of course, because he's Mr. Fantastic. And it's interspersed with Franklin and Val, their children, dealing with Norman Osborn, who's in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something like that at this point, coming after them because they're being so destructive. It's causing problems for society, at least to the bad guys who are in charge. And so there's a little fight here over that. There are some back and forth in these different universes. We get Reed dealing with a couple villains, and then Reed actually meets up with a bunch of Reeds in this alternate Reed reality where Reed are all trying to save the universes together, and they do it, and they go to different universes and do it together because they're all such geniuses they can do it. Of course, this leads to problems with his marriage because he's not being attentive of Sue, who gets upset with him and all that, just like normal. We've seen that trope in Fantastic Four many times before. And it continues with this whole Reed deal with the children all the way through the book, pretty much. Hey, there's my bookmark. So I read the whole book, even though the bookmark was right there. I don't know how it got placed right there. And there's different versions of Reed. Like, there's versions of Reed who are the Human Torch and etc. And it just kind of has this. There's a one-shot where it's Franklin's birthday. This is actually the most interesting character dynamic one. I thought this was very fun. I had a lot of fun with this issue. Franklin just wanted Spider-Man at his party, and there's some silly jokes and hijinks going on there. And they end up taking in these kids from some alternate dimension. I think this guy comes from Untold Tales of Spider-Man, and he's just like a freaky kid who has a weird dragon shape to him or something like that. And they get adopted by the Fantastic Four, more or less. Now, Franklin from the future comes back in time and tells Val she's like the key to everything or whatnot. Another trope that's pretty typical. The little girl's going to have to save everything in modern comics. So there are a lot of modern comics tropes I see in this. We've got a little Mole Man appearance here. Some Fantastic Four stuff. This is what I mean about the art. It's just not super dynamic. It has a fun factor that's missing to it, even though it's very detailed, right? All the way through, it's got that. Now, at the end of this, it's actually, I like these issues at the end much better than the beginning of this setup with the whole Reed's universe thing. And they're setting up something interesting here where they go on one-off adventures in these individual issues. This one goes to an underwater world that's competing with Namor, etc. And there's one where they went to the moon to deal with the Inhumans and stuff like that. And they have these little recaps at the end that kind of give a happily ever after summary, and they kind of all start to come together as these little one shots do their thing. So here's their little Inhumans meeting, and these one shots were a lot more fun than the original ones, or the original story with the whole Reed storyline. So I liked where this went. I could deal with a bunch of these types of one shots over and over again. That's some pretty art. I like that, of course. She ends up being a monster and makes Johnny Storm end up going into some dimension to deal with things, and that's then it all kind of comes together. So with this Johnny one, all this comes together with the faux Atlanteans and the moon people and the evil bug people, and it kind of just ends right there. They call it in the negative zone, the War of Four Cities begins, is what they say it is, and it ends here. So I don't know what happens after that, but I liked these one shots, and I liked all the setup of these four worlds or whatever, I guess, that are coming together in the negative zone, and it's gonna all gel together next time. But there was a lot of cool concepts in that. Each issue really had its own story, which I really liked. That's very unmodern times so that was fun on that element. I enjoyed it. I read it in an evening. Very quick storytelling, like most modern stuff. You can read this quick stuff very fast. Like I said, the art's very detailed and all that, but I kind of just don't, it doesn't, let's get back to the Hulk here. This has just a bright fun factor where it's just everything, every panel's super dynamic, whereas there's a lot of just talking heads in this, talking, right? And just here, this is not dynamic, right? So I didn't like it on that regard. Hickman overall, he set up some interesting concepts, but all the characters are in this dark, angry, flawed mood where Reed's strength and genius is really just pulling the family apart because it's so sad, and he knows he can never solve every problem in the universe, but that's all he wants to do. It's so nihilistic. And then Sue's just depressed because Reed isn't paying attention to her, and then the Thing just doesn't really have anywhere to go in life, and Johnny Storm is just being a floozy and trying to pick up girls at bars, and they're aliens and nothing ever works out. So you have this sort of angry down tone to it, which is I see in modern comics a lot. And I think, obviously that came from Venom and Punisher and all that in the 90s being so successful. But this is the Fantastic Four. It's supposed to be fantastic. And so at the end of the day, I found this to be a trope that I see in modern comics a lot, which is extraordinary people doing ordinary things, and just getting and just being down all the time. It doesn't feel fantastic, even though a lot of the scenarios that get put in are fantastic. The characters themselves don't feel fantastic, and it's hard to really root for them and get into it. Except for Franklin and Val, the little children are like the only ones who like seem to hold any sort of qualities that I like in characters. So that makes it tough here. I am going to read volume 2 whenever I get a hold of it. I don't know when I will. I got this as a half-price book, as you can see, because I found it on the cheap, and it was a 50% off day. So I got this for $9, which is pretty great. So I think it's okay. It's all right. I like some of the concepts. The character writing's very dark. The art is very, I feel like, like I said, a little stilted, even though it's a beautiful detail. And so it's kind of like I'd say it's like a 7 out of 10. I don't hate it, but this is not like, I'm reading Fantastic Four Epic Collection Volume 2, which is Stan Lee and Jack Kirby stuff. After reading this, I'm very happy to get back to that, is the best way I'd put it. All right, so that's it. If you like my review, hit the like button. If you don't like it, hit the down like button. I don't know. As long as you hit a button. And leave a comment what you think about Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four, Modern Comics, whatever you feel like saying. I like to hear from you. And hit the subscribe button. I'll be back with another review soon. See you guys.